Hi, in this video I want to discuss setting up online and offline background layers and show you how you can do this in QGIS using MB tiles. One thing that will be helpful in this exercise is installing the zoom level plugin. So this is a plugin that will display the zoom level of the current map in the status bar at the bottom of QGIS. And this is the zoom level that ranges from 0 to 20, with 0 being a global view and 20 being a kind of a city block zoomed in level. And these zoom levels are used by most of the mapping APIs, such as OpenStreetMap and Google Maps. And when we generate the MB tiles, one of the things it's going to ask is what the minimum and maximum zoom levels should be. So we can use this plugin to see what zoom level we're at when we're zoomed into our study area and gauge how to set the configuration for that tool. So again, this is where that zoom level will show up in QGIS when this plugin is installed. Okay, so I'm in QGIS now and I've got the zoom level plugin turned on and enabled, and you can see I'm at a zoom level of 17.91. So I'll keep that in mind as I start working with the MB tile tools that I'm going to show you. The issue of setting up online and offline base maps really has to do with whether you anticipate being outside of a cellular connection while you're collecting data. If so, you would not be able to use these streaming XYZ services. So if you anticipate that to be the case, you can do what I'm going to show you in this video, which is set up offline versions of those base maps so that you can toggle to those in input when you're out collecting data and still have access to these base maps. And there's one thing we want to check with these XYZ tile layers in layer properties, and that is from the source tab, the tile resolution. It's best if we set this to 256 by 256, and that will ensure that these look as good as they can on a high resolution mobile device screen. So I'll set that to 256 by 256. And I'll check the Bing imagery as well and make sure that that's set to the same, which it was not, and click OK. And I'll save my project. So as I get started here, I want to just turn off other layers and just turn on one individual XYZ tile layer at a time. And then I'll go to the processing toolbox and I'm going to search for MB tiles. And I'll find in the raster toolset, generate XYZ tiles, MB tiles. That's the tool I want to use. For the extent, I'm going to set this to the map canvas extent. And I'm going to set my minimum zoom at 18 and my maximum at 20. 20 is the highest zoom level you can get to. And you want to be careful when setting these because if you include too many zoom levels or zoom levels of too much detail, it can really blow up the size of the MB tiles file. And you want to make sure you keep that typically, well below 50 megabytes, or it can cause some performance issues on your mobile device. I will leave the DPI as the default, as well as the tile format, quality, and meta tile size. And I'll save this output data set into my folder. So I'll call this one OSM offline. And I'll click run to execute the tool. So it generates tiles at each zoom level I specified. And I can open up Windows Explorer to see how big this file ended up being. So it turned out to be 4 megabytes. So that's very reasonable. I'm going to switch back to the Parameters tab, turn off OpenStreetMap, and turn on Bing imagery. And here, the imagery can result in larger MB tile files. So I'm going to set the maximum to 19. That should be sufficient detail for me. And then I'll name this Bing offline. Into my same data collection demo folder. I'll click run. Now I'll close this and again bring up Windows Explorer to check on the size of that. So this ended up being just under 9 megabytes. So those are really good manageable file sizes for these MB tile offline base maps. So now I'll add these two layers. I'll switch to the browser panel and add the OSM tiles. And if I drag these above the Bing, you can see that that worked. And if I turn that off and pan the map, I can see that indeed this is just a tile data set that covers my current extent. Go back to the browser panel and add the Bing tiles. Okay, so I'll organize those in my layers panel. And now I'm going to set up map themes. So map themes are basically definitions of which layers participate in the map. So I'm going to turn off everything except OpenStreetMap, my study area, and the survey trees layer. And I'll go to the manage map themes on the layers panel, and I'll select add theme. And I'll name this theme OSM online, since this is the XYZ tile layer that's live. I'll then turn that off and turn on the MB tiles version of that. I'll go back to my manage map themes and add a theme OSM offline. I'll then switch on the Bing imagery. Call this Bing online. And switch back to the offline Bing and name this theme Bing offline. So now I have 4 different map themes, and I can quickly test those to make sure the correct layers are in each one. If you end up making a mistake, you can simply turn on the correct layers for that, go to this Manage Map Themes menu, and replace the theme that you need to replace. So you can manage these as you want. They're quite easy to work with. Okay, those all look good. So in the next video, we will be discussing how to set up your field data collection form widgets in QGIS.